Well, welcome to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on a Wednesday. It's the Podcast Daily, and it's a Worry Wednesday. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. How much worry, on a scale of 0 to 10, will Ohio State need to feel about Tennessee's rushing attack?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I would say maybe like a 6, maybe. And that's just, I think, paying some respect to Dylan Sampson, who I think is a good running back. And you and I talked about the other day, like it's a different thing from the traditional Big Ten rushing attacks. Defensive guys on Tuesday were talking about how much Tennessee spreads the field to create seams, like get you out of position, create one-on-one matchups, all that stuff. It's just a different beast than Ohio State has had to contend with. I guess like Purdue has run a version of this offense, but not very well. So I don't
not very informative.
Devin Maccabees had fairly good
that
success
is true.
running against Ohio State.
I did think of that the other day, actually. So it'll be a challenge, I think. I actually like the way that Caleb Downs put it, which was that the way that they spread you out almost makes your secondary and front seven have to play 2 different games. And if Ohio State needs to contend with that rushing attack with a light box with 4 down linemen and only 2 or 3 linebackers, and probably more often just 2 linebackers, that'll be difficult. So yeah, and it's not my concern is based more off just like the uniqueness of the challenge more so than it is, I think, like perceived deficiencies with Ohio State's run defense.
I thought that was a little bit of a troubling comment just based on the secondary and the defensive front were playing different games against Oregon, and it was some of the ugliest defensive football we've seen all year.
You'd like for your team to play the same game.
Yeah.
I don't know that either the secondary or the defensive front played against Oregon. So I was going to say a 6 also, just because it's not really about anything other than as good as Cody Simon and Sonny Styles have been this year. There's 1 or 2 times a game where they just miss a guy in the hole. And when the defense is spread so far out, as it will be against Tennessee, then a guy like Dylan Sampson has an ability to turn a 18-yard run into a 60-yard run, where Ohio State has not faced really that all year long. I do think that Tennessee, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, you probably have paid more attention. Like, they don't really have like a vertical threat at tight end. And that's something where I think you might see Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs still be a little bit more in the box.
I would think so. Yeah.
They
are their best run defenders.
Right, they are the best run defenders. And so I think that maybe that makes it easier. So that's why, even as good as Dylan Sampson's been this year, I think I'm probably in the 6 range, which feels slightly elevated, but I also don't think it's something that – I don't think Tennessee can win this game solely by rushing the ball against Ohio State. And so that's where it would be like an 8 if that was the case.
That's why I'm actually down at a 4, Burn, because I don't think that Tennessee – and I know how good their scheme is. I know how good their running back talent is. I know how well they've blocked throughout the course of the year, and I know that they're committed to run and committed to running at a high level. And all those things would tell you that, well, then that's what Ohio State should be concerned about. I don't believe personally that you can build a game plan that your sole directive is running the football successfully on Ohio State. I don't think you can sustain it. You might have a period of success or a play, as you mentioned, a tackle or 2 throughout the course of a game that gets Ohio State. But by and large, which is why I thought they would handle Michigan pretty efficiently. If you are one-dimensional and that one dimension is running the football, I don't think you have a chance of beating Ohio State that way.
I don't think we've seen a team really win against Ohio State with that approach since 2021, when Oregon and Michigan both did it fairly successfally.
Yeah.
This Ohio State defense, you'd hope, is a lot better than that 2021 defense. But yeah, you have to provide a second dimension as a threat to the defense.
Yeah.
I think the one thing, again, just to, I guess maybe play a little bit devil's advocate to that makes it different from some of those rushing attacks is if Tennessee decides to run Nico more than it. And I don't know off the top of my head how often he is getting designed run calls, but I was surprised by how much talk there was on Tuesday about his athletic ability and his running ability, and Jim Knoll said he's faster than you think he is. So
Dylan Raiola looked like
that is an added wrinkle.
A track star against them.
Would you say he looked like Patrick Mahomes?
I would say he definitely looked like Patrick Mahomes.
He did an impression of him, a knockoff version. I think that's a fair point to raise, Bill, because I think as Tennessee is looking and Josh Heupel is preparing, he'd say, well, Dylan Raiola was able to find rushing space. Drew Aller was able to find rushing space. That is the X factor. The way that Ohio State takes the run out, it doesn't always eliminate the threat from a quarterback. And sometimes it's design, sometimes it's scramble. I don't think Penn State went into the game thinking that Drew Aller was going to move the chains a couple times with his legs, but those opportunities materialized. The same for Nebraska. So maybe maybe you can't even scheme that because they came out of system and out of whack.
Yeah.
But, that'll be the part where if Nico Iamaleava is able to extend some plays, that's where I think it's stuff that is RPO or passing game oriented that becomes more of an issue because I just don't think you're going to line up
tennis ball.
It's like a piece of fuzz. Yeah, I thought it was a bug.
line up and run it straight at Ohio State and have any success.
Agreed.
Okay. What is the worry level with Tennessee's defensive line?
I don't want to be an alarmist.
Okay, but yeah, I think this has to be broken up into two different compartments.
Nope.
Don't you?
No.
Against the run and against Ohio State's running game
Tennessee's
and their
defensive
passing
line matching up against Ohio State's offensive line.
9. I'm a 9.
You can break it down if you want, but I'm asking overall because
game. Sure. Yeah. Bill says 9. I'm probably like an 8.25. Again, and I've said it a few times in the last few weeks. They remind me of Penn State, and I think that's easier to scheme around than two defensive tackles like Michigan's.
Their defensive coordinator was at Penn State, I think, before he went to Tennessee. So there is actually a lot of similarities, I think, between what they want to do schematically and style of defensive linemen. They're just fast and they're deep. And Ohio State's offensive line is not. I don't know if it has to be any more complicated than that. They're more, as Burmas pointed out, like it's the ends that worry you more about the tackles, but I still think the tackles are good. I need to see the interior of Ohio State's offensive line show that it can handle big athletic defensive tackles. I need to see,
and we need to see who they are.
And we need to know who they are. Yeah, maybe first and foremost. I need to see.
Well, we know what the options are.
Yeah, I need to see Josh Fryer handle speed rush. I need to see Donovan Jackson consistently handle speed rush. There's an imperative in this game on making sure that Ohio State is on schedule offensively, because if it is not and forced to convert third and longs, it's going to be a long day, man. I just don't know that they're going to be able to do it. So I'm not saying I'm going into this game already believing that Ohio State cannot block them, but it is by far the thing that I'm most worried about.
Yeah, should be. I mean, That is the most worrying thing about this game, and that's where you're talking about Nico and his ability to run the ball. We talked about it for the last 6 weeks of the season. Well, maybe Ohio State's going to ramp up the run game with Will Howard. Maybe that's the time to do it now, because that's what you need to balance the numbers and get yourself in a position where you're the one dictating the terms. Tennessee has very athletic linebackers. Arian Carter, a really good player. Ohio State liked him and tried to recruit him 2 years ago. He's that almost the Abdul Carter type of edge rusher if you let him come, and he's not a defensive end. So it's two guys on that side. So it's going to require a big day by Travion Henderson as well, and Quinshon Judkins, making sure that Will Howard has opportunity to get time to throw the ball. On Tennessee, I don't know what they're going to do in the back half of their defense, because if the ball gets off, then
they have one very good corner, and then the rest I think can be picked on.
Right. So you have an opportunity to make some plays if you're Ohio State, but that requires 3 seconds in the pocket to make that happen. Mm-hmm. And Tennessee is not going to let that happen easily.
The point you made is a good one, Berm, that Will Howard, I think, almost certainly is going to have to run in this game, either from pressure or designed rushing opportunities. And I keep coming back to the expression we hear a lot from Ryan Day, and it's generally focused towards the matchup games, where he says, well, we're going to do whatever it takes to win. And I don't believe that the coaching staff did that against Michigan, and I don't know that that's a very controversial statement at this point. But if that means, because I think the worry concern for Tennessee's defensive line is like a 10. They are filled with NFL players. They are as deep as any defensive line in the country. They are really good up front, and the depth does not compute with what Ohio State is dealing with offensively. So is this going to be a game plan? Because Ohio State's offensive line is not going to just go out there and win individual matchups. Are you going to get creative with your schemes? Are you going to stretch the perimeter, whether that's screens, whether that's pop passes, whether that's end arounds, whether that's RPO game and Will Howard pulling and running? I don't know what the solution is. It could be all of those things, could be mixes and matches. I don't know, but are they, after 3 weeks, I'm sure they have to be. How could they not be? Cognizant of the situation.
They better be.
I think from an offensive line perspective, the one thing that you worry about here, or maybe the area to attack Tennessee, is up the middle, right? That's how you generally attack a speed rushing team that has very deep, talented defensive ends. You get up the middle. The problem for Ohio State is that the middle of their offensive line has been
They
completely...
can't move the people who
Right.
are in the middle.
So I don't know if it's middle screens. I don't know if it's just more draw type stuff where you like there has to be something that we haven't seen Ohio State do a lot, because if you're just trying the edge stuff, the end arounds, the pop passes, especially if you're doing that to Quinshon Judkins or like that's not going to work. Like that is where Tennessee wants you.
But you do
is getting sideline to sideline.
like in supplement, so that you might be able to open up some avenues in the middle. Like they were leading with that against Michigan, which was the
You have to show that you can do that.
yeah.
And they didn't show it against Michigan, so they stopped worrying about it. And Ohio State kept doing it even though it wasn't working.
They have to spread the whole field out. Like Ohio State runs a lot of like condensed formations, and then they run the ball up the middle. They choose to play the game in a compact area.
It's what Zach Taylor does with the Bengals. It drives me crazy.
I know, and it's like what the Rams do it too. Like I'm not saying it is a poor way to play offense.
It's fine if you have Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow at quarterback, and you have Puka Nacua and whatever that other guy is, and then Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Like it's fine if you have those guys.
Cooper Kupp,
Cooper DeJean, whoever.
Too many Coopers.
But when you're Ohio State, like you don't have 5 NFL offensive linemen blocking for you.
No, but they do have NFL
I'm not sure
receivers.
the Bengals do either.
They do have NFL receivers, which is like they need to utilize that. Like everything everyone was saying about the Tennessee offense and how challenging it makes things for teams, I was like, Ohio State should do that because that sounds great because they also have better players to do it, at least in the skill positions.
Yeah, like why not?
Yeah. So
Wouldn't that be fun?
We saw a streak earlier this year of games where Will Howard completed like 12 of 12 to start the game. What five weeks
he's
in a
done it
row,
a few
right?
times.
He set the school record for completion percentage.
need-
in
Whose record
individual
did he
games. Don't worry about it.
You have to come out and get the ball to the receivers quickly.
Quick. Yeah, I agree.
I think that has to be the path forward because it's not going to change. Like if you are going on a run in the postseason and Ohio State wants to win a national championship, it won't just be Tennessee's defensive line. It will then be Oregon's defensive line after that.
And then
And
Texas,
Texas
and
is
then
winning.
Georgia.
Texas is going to lose. I wouldn't worry about that.
But the problem that you face over these next 4 weeks is the same no matter who you're playing. Like every team you're playing from here on out has a great defensive line. So Ohio State's
Not
offensive.
Arizona State.
Well, Clemson is going to beat Texas, so
Clemson's got a very good defensive line as well.
it's true. They do. Okay. What is one other thing that Ohio State needs to worry about?
Getting its head up its own butt, just like playing tight, like not living up to what Ryan Day said about like what did he say? Playing free and without fear of consequence, which I thought was a wonderful turn of phrase.
Sounds beautiful.
Yeah, they need to do that. Like, and I understand there's pressure in every Ohio State game, so I do always find it a little funny when they are asked about like, hey, do you feel any pressure in this game? I was like, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so
It's life in the big city, they
right?
say.
So that's always there. That's always there. Ohio State has not always handled that well, clearly in some of the Michigan games, and it'll be ratcheted up in this one for sure. It's winner or go home, and they need to handle that well. And I am still struggling a bit with their inability to do that at times. Is that more of just a Michigan problem, or is it a holistic problem that can be applied across the board? I don't feel like I have a firm grasp on that. And I guess this will be a good litmus test for it. But that is the thing that they need to avoid is just whatever that mindset is that causes them to play tight, that causes the coaches to like not see the adjustments that have to happen on the fly. That is definitely one more thing I'm worried about.
I think you go into this game understanding that probably 30 to 35% of the crowd is going to be Tennessee fans.
I don't think that's going to be the case. Well, you may be right about that. Ohio State has tracked the ticket sales as much as they can. They can't do the secondary market, but the ones that were sold initially only went 10% to Tennessee fans.
Secondary market, I'm worried about.
Okay, that's fair.
Even if it's 75%, even if it's 70%, you worry about getting that crowd involved early. You have to give them something to cheer for on Saturday night, and you have to do it early. Like, as tenuous as the relationship has been in the last few weeks between the fan base and the program, you need to come out and get them on your side early because that is how you will win this game. You are not going...
What if you pass out $100 bills?
Fine.
What if you gave them all day to drink?
Also good. I just think that people are going to come in with the mindset of like, maybe I'll just sit in my hands tonight because I'm just here because I'm pissed off. But like if you're there, celebrate and be
I
loud.
definitely don't think people like that was the funniest thing with the Herb Street thing. It's like people are going to buy tickets so they can go boo Ohio State.
No, they're not going to boo, but I think that there's a tendency for people to come into this much like the Ohio State team, like you're talking about. If you come into it tense and expecting the worst or expecting things to go poorly, we have a tendency as humans to manifest things at times because of our relationship with nature and space. I had a really
What a weekend
What
you
did
must
you do
have
in
had.
Nashville?
man, I just was all over the place. But no, give the crowd something to cheer for. Get them on your side early. And to me, that means taking some shots early. You have the best receiver in the country. You might have the 2 best receivers in the country. You have probably the best group of 3 receivers in the country. You have a
I
quarterback.
don't think there's a probably about that one.
Hey, I'm willing to entertain conversation.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
All right.
Find a way to get them involved. And that is the aggressive passing game to Travion Henderson, to Quinshon Judkins, because again, when we're talking about Tennessee, it's just going to be like this the whole game, right? So the way you beat that is by leaking running backs out to the flat and being aggressive. If you come into this game and you just try 3 powers, three, oh my gosh. If there's any...
He doesn't see one inside zone.
How about one stretch to the
let's
boundary?
just not do that until you've established that you can do something else.
Yeah.
Then I think you can't control everything. You can't control the way the crowd's going to react to everything. But I think if they see that you're being aggressive, I think the people will be like, they're being aggressive. And that's all that people wanted to see against Michigan at the end of that game was, why are you being so damn conservative?
So you agree with Kirk Herbstreit?
I don't think people are coming in to boo. I think they certainly will if they see an Ohio State team that looks afraid of its own shadow. Because guess what? It's a night game. There's barely any shadows. You don't even have to be afraid.
Wow, that's a great point.
That's a good point.
I also tend to think that, concerns about anxiety in the stands are overblown. These are going to be the most passionate Ohio State fans. Like it's still not cheap to go to any game at the Horseshoe, let alone a playoff game where the CFP is dictating what prices you have to charge, and then the secondary market gets out of control. So if you're going to be there, I don't know why you would want to go and not look for positives or not try and push and offer whatever support you can to get Ohio State across the finish line. Maybe I don't have the proper mentality to appreciate that, but I just can't imagine.
I think
Speaking
you have
as a Philadelphian, it is kind of fun to boo people.
I'm going to tell you, I think you do have the proper mentality. I'm just not sure that the Ohio State fan base, really does have the proper mentality. I think your perspective is hey, that's probably a normal way of viewing life.
Yeah.
But
One might call it healthy,
right.
but now it's not fun.
I don't know. I've only been
These
around.
dudes threw batteries at Santa Claus.
Snowballs. We threw batteries at JD Drew.
Batteries inside of snowballs.
Yeah.
I mean, this is only my 13th season here, and you've got me well trumped on that. So maybe someday I'll learn.
I get it. Like they want to see something that gives them reason to have hope.
And I think that's a fair expectation, right? Like yes, you want fan support. Like you count on it when you're playing in a home game like this. But like Ohio State needs to give this fan base a reason to believe in them, because they certainly didn't the last time they were on the field.
No.
Like I think that's perfectly reasonable.
You know what's got me worried, guys?
That it's Wednesday.
I bet you can guess.
Special teams.
Special teams.
If this game comes down to special teams, Ohio State's lost already. So
I don't think so. I don't believe that Tennessee can score at a really high level. And I do believe that there are valid concerns about Ohio State's game plan. If they go chuck it all over the yard, they could score in a hurry. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know that I fully believe that they are going to suddenly materialize into an up-tempo 80, 85 plus play team overnight.
If we keep talking about it, maybe they will.
Well, I mean, but I'm not going to count on it, okay?
That's fair.
And
That's fair.
so if I think, Berm, that this game might be well under, if I think it's going to be 24-13. I've said that all week. I'm going to keep saying it all the way through bold predictions. Then you're in that zone that you were talking about for the Michigan game, where if you don't flip the field on a punt, or if you give up a long return, or if you put yourself inside the 10 because you can't simply catch a kickoff, that removes your leverage.
There's some things you can control, like catching a kickoff or letting a punt go drive over your head.
Or missing 2 field goals.
But there's all things you can't. There's also things you can't control. If your punter can't kick it more than 35 yards and your kicker can't make a field goal from more than 40 yards, this is who you are at this point. So you play around it, especially when you're going to be kicking a rock on Saturday night because it's going to be 9 freaking degrees.
There it is.
All right, like it's
What's the wind situation?
Well, the wind chill, the real feel is supposed to be like 9 degrees,
But not windy.
no, but it's supposed to be like 10 to 12 miles. It's going to be cold.
Well, I've heard when it's 10 to 12 miles an hour, it's nearly impossible to throw the football.
Everyone knows that.
It's science.
It is going to be a game where if it comes down to kicking, Ohio State's going to lose. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves. Number one, even if this was perfect weather and they were playing in a dome, if it came down to kicking, the odds are that Ohio State is going to lose because their kickers are not better than other teams' kickers.
I mean, I'm not just saying specific to field goals. Like, Tennessee's going to have to punt.
Hidden yardage, man.
Hidden yardage. That's what I said all day before the Michigan game.
Yeah,
and what did they do?
You were absolutely right, partner. But
Don't do that.
You can get the positive of that too if they make special plays, if Caleb Downs is used in the return game, if they find out some solution, any solution, I don't know, preferably not Travion Henderson, as we've seen this over and over. Why do we keep seeing, like a year ago it was Julian Fleming and now it's Travion Henderson. Like, this team has way more athletes available to it. They can't keep getting away with this, Bill. And they're not actually.
They're not getting away with it.
Yeah.
What was wrong with Brandon Ennis? Was it Brandon Ennis was back there to start the year?
Yeah.
That felt fine to me.
That was Jaden Ballard on day one, remember?
Well, he's not going to be here.
He nearly popped everything went downhill in the kick return game from the first kickoff of the year.
That was the closest they came to busting one all year. Never again.
Special teams is rough, and especially because, again, now you're missing key players or players that were a part of special teams.
Oh, Gabe Powers.
So, I haven't seen if Tennessee's had any transfers out, really. I don't know.
I'm sure they have.
But no one that we've seen like, oh, that's a guy that's going to impact things. And certainly not with Ohio State. You're not losing a whole lot because even Gabe Powers has just been on kickoff return, I think, and not even on punt return.
He was on all 4 special teams.
He's on all 4?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, whatever. The point is you're missing a player or two in those spots that might cause some holes. But let's just not pretend. If this comes down to special teams, Ohio State's going to lose.
I don't think it has. I don't think it
I'm
has
not
to be
saying
that
it
way.
has to.
Because
all evidence supports that.
I think if it comes down to making your kicks, you're right. But
that's what I'm saying. It's not
the point
field
is
goals.
well made about the field position stuff.
We have seen them block multiple punts. We have seen Caleb Downs take a punt back. There are parts that have not gotten any better. Field goal kicking and kickoff return are problems. And they also kicked
punting
off multiple times out of bounds throughout the course of the year. So, it's not the spot that you would want to bet on, which is why I'm saying it's something to worry about.
Field position is a huge part of this game.
What's the number there? 1 to 10
on special teams?
Yeah.
7, 8, 9. I think that they, at their best, they can be elite because I think. All right.
If at their best they can be average.
I should have known if I had a worry Wednesday that this would be a green light.
They can't make a kick, and they can't punt the ball beyond 35 yards. So
even
at their best,
Jaden Fielding did deliver against Penn State. Like, you can't. It has been inconsistent, without question, or I wouldn't be continuing to talk about it. But it's not. We have seen them execute everything other than kickoff return.
When in doubt, don't let it come down to the special teams.
That's what they should have made the offseason mantra. And we got
it's
to
too
the
long.
end.
Yeah. Doesn't fit on a t-shirt.
When in doubt.
When in doubt, throw the special teams out.
There it is. We got it. Yeah. Well, I think there was some insight mixed in there with the worry and concern and panic. I hope you got
What's
something
the one
out of
area?
it.
Let's
we got to go, Berm.
What's the one area that you think Ohio State has the best advantage in this game?
I think, that's why I'm not concerned about Tennessee's running game. I don't think they can run it on Ohio State.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe that. I think I have a decent amount of belief in Ohio State's defense, just sort of generally in this game.
I just think it's the receivers against the secondary of Tennessee. If you give Will Howard 3-4 seconds to throw, the Buckeyes are going to win this game by 2 scores.
You're giving away too many bold predictions for Friday's
we got to wrap it up.
Yeah,
We're getting yelled at.
Yeah, we got to get out of here.
Positive, though.
Because there's more coverage coming from in here in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on this Wednesday. We're going to hear from Ryan Day. We'll have the press conference streamed on the podcast YouTube channel. As always, way more coverage coming. We are another day closer. We're at the midweek point for Ohio State and Tennessee, Saturday night in the Horseshoe, 8 o'clock. For Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham, I'm Austin Ward. Thanks for joining us on the Podcast Daily. We'll talk to you later.